walk around your neighborhood and see solar panels, you probably don't see the difference between them. Maybe you notice that some are different colors and some have lines, but even when you Google solar panels, they all look very similar. But each one has large differences that affect the quality, lifespan, and performance of the panels. And there are actually 7 types of solar panels in existence, each one with its own use case and purpose. And then there are some solar panels that are still in development but could be the future of solar as we know it, so stick around to the end to find out. And if you appreciate the video, remember to like and subscribe. At number 1 and number 2, we have monocrystalline and polycrystalline solar panels, the most popular solar panels by far. In fact, if you know solar, you already knew these were going to be on the list. These are the panels you see on homes, backyards, in stores, on farms, pretty much anywhere you go. Anytime you see solar panels, it's likely one of these. A very quick way to know which is which: monocrystalline panels are black and polycrystalline panels are blue. And just like the colors, all the other differences between these two panels can be kind of hard to see as well. Monocrystalline panels are slightly more efficient than polycrystalline panels, and when I say slightly, I mean it's almost negligible. And the same goes for the price difference. For residential solar, it almost doesn't matter which one you get because the differences are so tiny, you'll be fine either way. Now, monocrystalline is slightly more expensive, so if you're trying to save a few bucks, then go with poly. But unless you're operating a solar farm or you have a very large solar system like utility scale or maybe a mansion size, you wouldn't need to worry that much about the differences, especially since the gap in the price and the efficiency of these panels are getting slimmer and slimmer as manufacturing gets better and better on both sides. And thankfully, both of these panels can last between 25 and 30 years, even more depending on how well they're taken care of. At number 3, we have thin film solar panels, and no, they're not just mono and polycrystalline panels, but thinner. There's more to it than that. They're made differently with different solar cells and all. In fact, there are different types of thin film solar panels, but all you really need to know for this video is that thin film panels are much thinner, lighter, and more flexible than traditional solar panels. These panels are more easy to use and are much more flexible, which allow you to use them in much more creative ways. The only downside is that these panels are on average about half as efficient as traditional solar panels and only last about 10 to 25 years depending. Thin film solar panels have a variety use case. If you get enough of them, you can justify having your own solar system based off of them because they're cheaper to get, and depending on how long you want to use them and the type of panels that you get, they can be a better bang for your buck than getting traditional solar panels. It's like the economies of scale, if you will. But even if you decide not to go that far with thin film solar panels, you may find them still useful in your day-to-day. There are ones that charge cell phones, there are ones that I've seen on hats and clothing, and fun fact, remember those calculators we used to use that had like that solar panel like in the top corner of it? Yeah, that's a thin film solar panel, and yes, you could have charged your calculator using just that, although it would have taken a while, which is why many of us never paid attention to it. Overall, thin film is a great on-the-go, beginner-friendly way to get into solar panels for solar adopters and solar enthusiasts. And if you're interested in going solar yourself, my company helps people go solar all across the country. Click the link in the description to find out more. At number 4, we have half-cut solar panels. At this point, we are now starting to get into what is the cutting-edge technology of solar panels. And yes, half-cut and cutting-edge, yes, pun intended, but deal with it. But to explain half-cut solar panels, I need to make sure you understand how solar panels themselves work. Every solar panel has solar cells, and these solar cells are what capture the sun's light and converts it into electricity. The average panel has 60 solar cells, a little bit bigger, and they have 72. Bigger than that, they have about 96. But in a half-cut solar panel, we're looking at 120 solar cells instead of 60, 144 instead of 72, and 192 instead of 96, thus effectively doubling the amount of sunlight that can be converted into electricity. Now, despite how I just explained this method doesn't actually double the efficiency of the panels, but it does increase the efficiency by about 2 to 10% depending on the panel and the technology used to create it. Now, to be clear, they didn't just stuff more solar cells into the same panel. No, we're talking about the 60 cells that were in the average panel. What they did was they cut those 60 cells into even smaller cells. The benefit of that is that more sunlight and more electricity can move through each one of these cells faster, which will create more electricity over time, thus increasing the efficiency of the panel. And along with the cells being cut in half, so are the literal panels. The reason for this is because if some part of the panel is ever shaded, or if some part of the panel is ever kind of damaged or cracked, it can affect the whole panel. But now, instead of the whole panel being affected, it's been cut into 2 individual panels that allow for independent operation. So if the top half is ever dealing with any problems like shading, that won't affect the bottom half, thus allowing you to keep at least 50% of the performance of your panel over time, thus making it overall way more efficient than a traditional panel. The trade-off is that they're much more expensive and may not always be worth it, especially if you're living in an area where not a lot of things are going to either shade your panels or damage them. At number 5, we have bifacial panels, and these are literally my favorite panels. Bifacial solar panels can generate electricity from both the front and the back of the panel, making them much more efficient than traditional solar panels. Bifacial solar panels are about 10 to 20% more efficient than traditional solar panels. Now, bifacial solar panels aren't necessarily special because they're just capturing the sun from both sides all the time, because as we know, the sun shines one way at all times and kind of moves across the sky, but always shining down one specific direction. The beauty of bifacial solar panels is the panel will capture the initial sunlight that comes from the front, but all the other sunlight that it can't catch, it bounces off of walls, off of the ground, off of animals, plants. That's where like light bounces, and some of that light is going to bounce behind the panel. And so the panel is going to catch that sunlight and produce more electricity. And bifacial solar panels last the same 25 to 30 years like traditional solar panels do. The only real downside of bifacial panels is that they're just a little bit more expensive, about 10 to 20% more expensive. But those numbers are drastically decreasing as bifacial solar panels are getting easier and easier to manufacture. So hopefully in the future, everyone will start having bifacial solar panels. And I must say, I really do like them a lot. The thought process that both sides are generating electricity, it just opens up way more conversation for how much more panels can do. At number 6, we have solar tiles or solar shingles, whichever one you'd like to call them. And these are the best looking of all the panels. These are the solar panels that are meant to blend in with your roof or just straight up be your roof. Solar shingles allow you to enjoy all the benefits of solar without having to sacrifice the aesthetic of your roof. But they come at a much higher cost and don't produce nearly as much electricity. They're about 20% less as efficient as traditional solar panels while costing about twice as much as traditional solar panels. So these panels are highly aesthetically based, and if you're rich, it might be cool to get some. In fact, the most popular brand that ever did this is Tesla. The Tesla solar roof was pretty much the most successful run at solar shingles or solar roofs, but it's just very, very expensive, and most people either aren't buying it or it's too expensive for manufacturers to make. But as time goes on, I'm sure they'll become more accessible, and it'll be pretty cool to see all the future homes that use solar roofs. And finally, at number 7, we have CPV panels, or concentrated photovoltaic panels. These panels are by far the most rare on this list. These are solar panels that use lenses or mirrors to focus sunlight all onto a small area of solar cells. These types of panels are very expensive to make, and you'll rarely see them around, and they also take up way more space than a traditional panel. Because they need all the mirrors and lenses and sensors, it's a lot. In fact, you'll probably only ever see them on commercial or utility grade solar projects. Now, the good news is that these are the most efficient panels by far, topping out at about 40% efficiency. And just so you could visualize this, CPV panels top out at 40% efficiency, and these are what all the other panels top out at. So you can see why there's still hope for CPV panels. It's a lot. Now, it's really good to know that all of these panels had different types of versions for each one. For example, monocrystalline panels come in IBC or PERC versions. These versions have different use cases, specialties, efficiencies, which can affect what I explained earlier quite a bit, which is why I left them out, because these versions are very technical and not common enough to justify being in such a simple video like this. And there are also other solar panels on the horizon, like organic solar panels that literally use plant life to make electricity, because as we know, plants use the sun's rays for energy and life. And what scientists found was that you can do the same thing to create electricity within a panel. That's pretty big. And then you have perovskite solar panels, which are proving to be an extremely hopeful project that would make solar panels so thin and more efficient than traditional solar panels and cheaper than traditional solar panels. We'd be looking at a complete rework of solar as we know it over the next decade or two. But those require much deeper conversations, numbers, and a longer video. So let me know down in the comments if you want to see a video like those. I would be happy to make them, along with anything else that pertains to solar, like batteries or inverters. And if you'd like to support the channel to keep videos like this coming, you can become a member of the YouTube or of my Patreon to get exclusive content and perks, like getting getting shout out at the end of the video like this. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Have a good one.